Live tonight, in front of an AI-generated crowd of over 15,000, watch as 3 daredevils perform stunts that will boggle your mind and make you doubt your own eyes. No ropes, no safety nets, not even the basic precaution of the best wishes from loved ones. We will attempt to bring Jabber Jawn to a show that will go down in sideshow history as one you had to see to believe. 2 songs, many laughs, maybe a thing or two hinting at intelligence and the hint of the proverbial pie in the face upon completion of our chosen tasks. We hope you can join us at the airport and follow us to the showplace of your choosing, because wherever you want us, that is where we will be. Clap your hands 3 times and proclaim Jabber Jawn. 7 o'clock on all those watching platforms Nathan has described. Do good and share your popcorn.
Three little frogs sitting on a log, one of them fell in. One frog said to the other frog, well, you better go get her. 2 little frogs sitting on a log, one of them fell in. Last little frog, he sat and thought, good thing they can swim. Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn. 3 little frogs sitting on a log, one burst into a grin. One frog said to the other frog, wonder what's got into him. 2 little frogs sitting on a log, one laughed until he is red. Last little frog, he sat and thought, must have been something I said. Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn.
Oh, it's you two. We are live. Hello, everybody. Wait, how does he do this? We're missing Lex. All right. Trying to get my buttons on my phone here so I can control it from over there.
Lex lost some teeth, so we have to be without him this week.
Oh, here we go. I got it. Yep. Oh, I think I got it. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Jabber Jawn. I'm your host, Nathan Moore. This is your host, Kyle Hogg. This is your host, Steve Moore. Jabber Jawn at your service. Welcome to the show. It's good to see everybody. We missed last week because of Hurricane Debbie, which sort of seemed to miss us a little bit at the end of the day. Although very close by, people really got hit. I was thinking that it missed us entirely, but I was hearing complaints of flooding in other parts of town even.
Yeah, they said we got about 4 inches, but it was a steady and not a very violent affair, what we got. And we didn't get the flooding that we could have.
Yeah.
Over the time period. And
we
were lucky.
I was already nervous because the Sunday before we had a serious flooding incident down here that this book is still a remnant of. This gives me some arts and crafts ideas. I'm not exactly sure what to do with this information, but there's something pretty cool about how it just sits there like that. I don't know. You guys can run with that. Oh, wait, let me get the screen looking better for me.
Yeah, my neighbor, as you know, when walking by my house all that time, the gutter has pretty much got a bunch of growth in it, so I decided to rush home from work and pull all that out.
Right.
So my neighbor across the street who keeps his yard immaculate had a good laugh at me out there, you know. So the next day it was all beautiful. He came out and said, I guess you can't work in the yard today with all the sun out. You need a nice good downpour to be out there working. So I just need an inspiration to get stuff done.
You were telling us about that in your text message, and it sounded like he was like really giving you some.
Oh, he was loving it. He had such a good time.
Because he has like a
he's
perfectly manicured
Yeah.
yard, and probably you might be a little bit the bane of his existence. Does he like you?
He does like me, I think. He likes making fun of me. But you know, he's got like a little. If you had a push lawnmower, you could mow his front yard in like maybe 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got like a big, multi-tiered tractor. He rides and cuts it. And
What's
like,
up with that?
Like 3 swipes, and he parks it in the driveway again, and he's done.
We still doing this arriving song thing? Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
part of the format?
Yeah.
Yep.
Any requests?
I figured you had something in your head. Go for it.
Trying to get drunk enough to cry. Got these tears lodged inside. Sober, they've been clouding up my eyes. So I'm trying to get drunk enough to cry. Trying to get high enough to fly. Leave the cold, cold ground behind. I'm soaring, sure be sore in the morning. I'm just trying to get high enough to fly. So if you feel a little something on your shoulder, don't worry, it's only me getting older. I'm good company. Trying to blend in, I'm sticking out. Leaving, they leave a little doubt. Maybe you could tell me what that's all about. I just been trying to blend in, I'm sticking out. A little dark cloud up against the sky, minding my own, just floating by. Lately this town has been a little dry. Well, I'm a little dark cloud up against the sky. So if you feel a little something on your shoulder, don't worry, it's only me getting older. I'm good company. It's a good call and response chorus. Try this. Repeat after me. So if you feel a little something on your shoulder, don't worry, it's only me getting older. Here we go. I'm good company. 2 more. I'm good company. Big one. Oh, I'm good company.
Man.
Nailed it. Holy moly, Kingston Trio up in here. Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Brought to you by Golden State Biscuits.
That's right. Need a biscuit.
Man, I have discovered that I didn't do very well that time. She took me off guard. But the lady I went and saw last week had we had to sing along with her. And I realized I was just sitting there by myself with the biggest smile on my face, singing Girls Trip like over and over. Like, well, I can't wait. Girls Trip!
It's such a powerful thing. Pete Seeger was the folk tradition has a lot of that in there. Pete Seeger, that's all it was.
Right.
And you can make a whole career out of that, of just encouraging and creating the environment for people to sing.
Right.
And it's powerful stuff.
Now, is that from the church?
It's
you
pretty
think?
amazing how you look at those like old Pete Seeger concerts and stuff, and I'm like, how does everybody know the words to all these songs? But I guess that still blows my mind because I'll all the people at these bands I've never heard of,
Oh, right.
and everybody's just singing every word. It's like, it's pretty impressive how people. But I've seen a lot of Pete Seeger clips, and I'm just like, God, did everybody just know the words to all these songs back then, or is this
Yeah, everybody grew up with the songs. They were part of the tradition.
And songs used to be a little bit. It used to be like, you know, nobody even knew who a songwriter was, but they would come up with a song, and then the singers, every singer would have their version of that song.
Right.
Which was a whole thing. Like you had your crooners, whatever, and everybody did their version of the song, whatever it was. And the songwriter himself he or she was a anonymous
Right.
figure in the wings.
Right.
It wasn't until like the 60s, whatever, that the singer-songwriter even existed. I don't think that happened in human history before. Well, Woody Guthrie there's a couple of anomalies back there, but for the most part, it's sort of interesting, that separation.
I don't know. I kind of disagree. I think a lot of the people that traveled around were singer-songwriters back then.
The troubadours?
The troubadours, yeah, exactly. And they're the ones that would tend to share the music.
But for a lot of, to a great extent, a lot of the troubadours they would have their interpretation of the popular songs, but they
Right.
were sort of carrying a bag of popular, quote unquote, popular songs. They were the radio. They were
Right.
that information in folk music. I love, like, when you research a folk song, you will find so many versions of that song, whatever it is. Like, oh, I never heard this verse before. Like, oh, this person does a Tennessee Waltz. Any song you want to talk about from the 40s on, you will find so many different versions of that song, completely different verses, completely different takes. It's pretty interesting.
Whenever you go to a good library book sale and they have all the old music books they're getting rid of, it's always some guy I've never heard of that's gone back and tried to trace the origins of these songs, you know. Like, it was the first song in West Virginia, you know. Like, how these guys did all that research, I don't know, but I've picked up a few of them. I was like, I don't know if I can really get into this, but
Right.
it is a fascinating study if you're really interested.
Yeah, like the Alan Lomax wormhole of the origins of songs, because definitely so many songs have much more interesting origin stories than you would find of any song nowadays. There's no example in modern day of an interesting evolution of a song to becoming what it is known as today. Like, oh, this melody was first from the battle hymn of the blah blah blah, and then it was like appropriated by who put these words to it, and then so and so came up with this refrain and little.
But it is funny, like, I just got a bunch of albums from one of my mom's friends, and it's like you said, it's like, if you have like 10 albums by, like, you know, the Clancy Brothers, the Limelighters, you know, whatever all these old singing groups were, there's 10 albums, there's only maybe like 25 songs. They're all just doing the same, like you said, their own versions of them.
Right. Like, even as early as like when Bob Dylan first came out and wrote Blowin' in the Wind, then Peter, Paul and Mary had their version. Like, everybody started doing Blowin' in the Wind, and he was a songwriter of significance or whatever. But it's still like, nobody wanted to hear Bob Dylan's version of it. Like, at first, it was the old paradigm where he was just a songwriter. We were listening on the way to our last camping trip. We heard this terrible song on the way there. It was a song it was a song about, I think it's Kid Rock, and it's a song about Sweet Home Alabama. It's a song about, like, being young and drinking beer and listening to Sweet Home Alabama.
With him and Sheryl Crow.
And they just used the music from Sweet Home Alabama, put a different beat to it. It's the same hook. They just let's just sing a song about a song. And it's the laziest piece of writing I've ever heard in my life. And we were just like, what on earth is going on here? So then we went camping, and I was like writing songs, and I wrote a couple that I thought were pretty good. But then we came up with this idea that was probably going to be the hit of the weekend. And the basic idea of the song is, the refrain comes around and it's, the answers all along were in Bob Dylan's songs. The answers were in Bob Dylan's songs. If I just spin a few verses for that, I think we got a hit on our hands. I think it's going to be huge. The answers all along were in Bob Dylan's songs.
Good old Bobby Dylan.
So what's new with you? How's your week been?
Well, that's two completely different questions. Nothing much is new with me, and I'm having a pretty good week that way.
Mm-hmm.
So
I liked your last poem on Facebook.
I don't remember what
You don't
it was.
remember what it was?
But,
I bet I could find it.
there was one that was more of a poem about people that write poems.
Mm.
I was playing with words that night. But, I don't know if that's the one you're thinking of. I don't think so. I wrote something pretty good the other day. I can't remember what it was.
It's a good thing you wrote it down.
Well, there is that. I've been enjoying my journals.
Mm.
I was back in 1996 the other day.
Wow.
There was some amazing stuff going on, but that was Joe's senior year. And there's a whole lot of football, you and Daniel and I, and everybody else getting on the bandwagon for all those football games in the fall. Nathan wrote a theme song for the team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Black and gold.
But it was also one, in a poem I wrote, or something I wrote, was called "The Summer of My Sons," because I had
Smelling that tomato sauce upstairs.
Yeah.
My 4 a.m. concoction.
Right, and that was that time. Joe was the star. Daniel was at UVA, and he was coming home on the weekends and enjoying it. And Nathan came home from the road. He was burned
The
out.
amusement broke up.
Yeah, and they had just broke up, and he didn't know what he was going to do. But so he's back there living in the pine tree forest.
Living in the treehouse.
In the treehouse with a squirrel named Pedro.
Yeah.
And so that was that time, and we just had a ball. I mean, Friday nights, football games, and all of us would be up there, and, Steve Talley, I had the list of, but a lot of it, again, with the journal, it just brings it all back so close. I say things I would never remember about that time. It was a fun time, and now I see some of it. I even have the newspaper clippings of Joe's games and people, what they're saying, and
Oh wow.
but there was also a lot of other stuff going on during that time.
So these were Lehigh
You were
games?
performing. What?
These were Lehigh games you were going to?
No, Buffalo Gap.
Oh, Buffalo Gap.
Yeah,
okay.
I was a gapper.
That's when he said black and gold. I was thinking, man, who was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I created
Steelers
this
thing.
whole fight song for him with my home studio and stuff, and Joe would play it on a boombox in the locker room before they went out. Go black, black, gold, go.
We were just totally into it.
Yeah, that was an amazing
It
time.
was a lot of
Some of the
fun.
best songs I ever wrote were during
that's
that little
Rolling
stretch.
Home, and
yeah, also
that
many
was a
chicken
rolling
and rice.
Chicken and rice was all during that time.
Summertime Bank, Phoebe,
But
tons of them.
it was that one time, and when all four of us were together. There was a period of time when none of us had a girlfriend. I don't know if it was then, but there was one moment in time where
One day.
when there was at least 3 hours where none of us had a girlfriend. Which was kind of sad, but it was also we had each other.
Right,
That was the good part.
3 hours together, somebody decided I need a girlfriend.
Yeah, there's always somebody.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's the thing about my family. One of the things I'm most amazed at and proud of is the women that my sister and I, she had 2 boys and I had 3 boys, and so the 5 women that have come into our life associated with those 5 boys have just been amazing people. It's just been remarkable, the quality that that I can see from the side, and I can see, how good these people are and how much our family has strengthened by having all of them to a person. Every one of them is.
Somehow or another, y'all instilled that right in all the kids, from not only our companions but our friends, and that I don't know how y'all taught that, but it seemed to be something we got from the families rearing of us.
I don't think it came from me directly so much as Mom and Dad. They were a better example of stability.
Yeah, but just surrounding yourself with quality, being sure that you
and believing in love.
and believing in love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But that was a. So I gave that to Joe, the journal, let him borrow it. So it's got these little clippings, little glory days for
Oh
him.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Those were fun times.
What did you look like back then? Do you remember? Do you have long hair? Or were you
Didn't have a beard.
too young for a
Still
beard?
Peter Pan.
Still Peter. Get little elf boots climbing up into the tree.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a hippie air. I think I was about to talk about something and I flashed on. I feel like we've already talked about that. But just in case it bears reiterating, I've always appreciated people that dress in a way that's flamboyant or different than the way everybody else dresses.
Right.
I think it's fun permission to free yourself up a little bit. Like
Right.
I see it in a lot of my friends, and I've always struggled with that, of being as I want to say radical, but it doesn't even have to be radical. But
Right.
just like we all have
some kind
friends
of
that
statement.
dress in flamboyant or radical ways that are it can be such a freeing energy,
Right.
such permission to let loose a little bit and let go. And I've always really appreciated that. But every time I try to step outside of the bounds of my normal attire, I get uncomfortable. It's like I can never pull off a cool hat or whatever. I just get self-conscious. I feel like everybody's looking at me going, who's he think he is?
Is that the reason you have Lex over here in those overalls?
That's
you
why
had
I
on
hang
that
out with
one day?
Lex.
Lex
Yeah.
had those. Were they tie-dye overalls? What can't remember.
Tie-dyed overalls.
Yeah.
We went out to their shed this weekend and stayed the night with him out there. And boy, seeing him out there in his element in his tie-dyed overalls, really, it all makes sense. They have really done a wondrous thing out there.
Wow.
I shot a little video of it to show you guys tonight. Don't leave without reminding me to show you that, because what they've done is incredible. I mean, they just got one of those sheds that you can buy from Home Depot or wherever they sell the sheds. But it has windows, it has a roof, has a nice door. But you go in there and they got this, on one far wall are these 2 bunk beds that are double bunk beds, a double-sized bed, bunk beds.
Right.
And then this couch, and it's a really cozy couch, and then a kitchen area over here and a TV. When we're in the middle of the woods, we walk in, the Olympics are on in the corner of this cozy little shed.
Wow.
I'm just like, oh my goodness. They built a deck around it. They built a whole bathroom area with a solar shower, and they have this fire pit, and it's just Shangri-La out there. It's just very,
Wow.
very inspiring. It's just like, holy moly.
That's great.
It's a whole thing. You feel like reading either of these poems on your Facebook wall? There's your last 2 there. I don't know which one.
I think Discord's not working again. I haven't had a single thing.
Oh, really? I wonder if it's... Oh, Swaby's in here saying, I don't think Restream is working. Gosh, I hope it doesn't mess us up for... Because we use a completely different computer for Jabberjawn that we use for the daily practice. And I hope it wasn't trying to... that this computer breaks Restream in some way, because it was... I don't know what's going on there. That's so sad, so sad. But we are live. Thank you, Swaby, for letting us know that.
And we do have poetry coming up, so stay with us.
You could look at the chats on YouTube. Let me see here.
I think I'm bad luck. You remember writing any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Tripping balls up there, and I don't know what's going on. No, these are new, or these are something you found in your journal?
Well, this one,
Here's the live chat on YouTube.
here's one that says, something I wrote after reading some poetry. I picked up a anthology of poetry, and I don't usually read other people. You know, I don't read a lot of poetry. So I just got it flipping around, and I would read the poem, then I'd see who it was, and sometimes I already knew, but, you know, I was just getting for a feel. And I was thinking about words and how you play with words, and how I've always really not thought of myself as a poet because I don't read stuff like this. So I don't know where I fit in. So what I'm trying to do, one of my goals is anti-poetry in a sense, because I feel like a lot of poets, at least of this order, of this type of poetry, use a lot of words because they fit, but not because they're anything anybody would know. Unless you were someone that just read poetry all the time.
Right.
So I don't think of myself as someone who uses I'm trying to write poetry without using poetic words, except where they, you know, fit naturally from the way I talk about the world.
On the other hand, you do love unusual words.
And I play with one, at least one every day. And that's what the murder is all about in this one poem. I was just I was thinking about my childhood or when I would go out on the town. This poem's about those years I spent after I had been, you know, out loose, and I was hitting the bars, and I knew all the waitresses, and I was drinking too much, and I was lonely, and I was alone, and so that's poems about that time. And so, but
wait a minute. So how does murder come into this? Are you trying to tell us something we don't know about?
No. Here's how it came in. Was that started the whole poem. I was thinking about what you would call my guys, like you know, you have a group of guys that play racquetball together. We're a club. We're not a club. Are we a gang? No, we're not a gang. And I was just thinking about what you'd call us. We were just a bunch of guys going out looking, you know, and then I'm talking about going out on the town with 2 or 3 guys, just having fun, not looking for trouble, obviously just looking to create some disorder in the world. Mischief. And, you know, when I think of Benny, that's what I think about is we would call it making a statement. Benny and I say, yeah, it's about time we went out there and made it. Let's go ahead and make a statement. And that's all it was. So it was like us, we don't have a game plan, but we're out there. And so that was during this time. And, but it gets back to were we a gang? And I say, well, we were a bunch of crows. You know, we weren't predators, we weren't hawks. We were just around checking it out and looking for trouble. We were looking to, you know, stick our nose. So, well, they call themselves a murder. And then I started thinking about that. You know, well, we didn't really want to murder anybody, so that's a little strong. But I don't know what I'd call us. So that's where the murder came.
Okay.
But it's also where the poem came from, because I started playing around with it, and then that took me into the different gangs I belonged to. The Belugas are a gang, and my racquetball family was a gang.
Yeah, for sure.
And my family is a gang, and but these guys I would go hang out with, and go out to make a statement with, Benny and Rick and the boys. But that's what this is about. So, yes, I had wandered widely for a while. A murder of crows, and I took in the classiest dives, seeking to wage disorder on those too lonely to go home. We broke unwritten rules with abandon. We would have to be forgiven in the morning as we searched vainly, almost insanely, for just one to look up and say, I know. We sang songs to the moon. We carried on. We woke up eyebrows that had seen it all. And if we only got a smirk, that was enough, until the night I saw her.
Very good. Is that what they did? The hipster clubs. Too lonely to go home. Well, that's a powerful image.
Yeah, that takes me back to, when we were hitting the bars, those last couple, the only people left were the people that were too lonely to go home.
Wow.
Or they were too drunk to drive. Same thing, usually.
That was wonderful.
Too lonely to
I'm
go
sorry.
home. Wow.
Couldn't really read it well.
No, that was a good reading, I thought.
Did it do all right?
Yeah.
I didn't take it too seriously, because the truth is I just threw in that last line about seeing her because I was tired of writing the poem.
Get me out of here.
This'll wrap it up.
because the truth is, when I was out with those guys, I wasn't looking for anything like that. I mean, I was always looking for that, but you know what I mean. I was having fun. I didn't need to be saved.
Right.
Well, so,
But I needed to get out of that poem.
so Missy says your writing is deeply moving prose.
Oh, that's so sweet. We're trying to keep it real.
Now, when you sit down to write this, do you have like a couple of lines already in your head, or do you just the pen touches the paper and you just start writing?
I usually work around the theme of maybe just a word, playing with the word, or thought, or something that a lot of times two incongruous things that don't normally be associated. All of a sudden I see a pathway where they come together, and that forms a verse to a poem or a song. Yeah, you do it better than I do.
But is this on your head, or is does the finished poem leave behind like 10 pages of markouts and restarts?
No, it's usually pretty pure. I don't do a lot of changing around. It just kind of pops up the way it is.
Do you write in your journal and then transcribe it onto Facebook?
Usually. And I'll rough it. Sometimes I'll go straight to the Facebook and then copy it later on back into my journal.
Pressure's on then if you're on your phone in the little comment box.
Yeah, but I don't always keep it. I don't have. But sometimes it just feels like that's what I want to say. And the other thing is I'm not a person who can think long sentences and paragraphs. I'm good for 2 or 3 sentences. Short paragraphs or anything after that I don't do very well.
I'm terrible with prose.
Yeah.
I've been asked so many times, like, well, you're a writer. Why don't you write a little blurb for this thing or a little speech for this? And I'm like, oh my God. And when I was younger, I was dumb enough to try. And you're really good at it. That's
what my dad used to always say. You should write for the paper. You should write. Like, they would read one of my articles and say, no punctuation, no anything. Get rid of this clown.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of fantasy too. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, you writing about going to the bathroom. There's a lot of fantasy in there. The words and the way you see it.
Right.
It's magical. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but. I don't know if a Stanton leader could have handled it.
Right. Whoa, I didn't expect this story about the local sports team to take such a turn. Holy moly, how did we wind up here?
But it takes a discipline to be able to write that way.
Well, sure.
You could be the new FP, though.
That's the guy's name I was trying to think of, Fred Pfister.
Yeah.
God, I was trying to think of him like a year ago.
Where was his column? That was a column, right? But it was like Kyle, a little bit.
Yeah, he had his own way of looking at everything.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy that interviewed me when I was in high school doing bold print. Somehow he found out about it.
Oh, wow.
They had an article about me in the paper. And I never knew who the guy was. You know, I went down there and talked to him.
What section of the paper was he in? Like the editorial section?
He was in the editorials. He had an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Was it called Thoughts? Or what was it called? Something like that. Fred Pfister, yeah. He's still around, or did he pass away?
I don't know.
I feel like he might have passed away.
Haven't heard anything
I
from
hate to
him.
be fake news on that level. Sorry if that's wrong, FP.
Sorry, Fred.
You ever write any poetry?
Oh, yeah. A whole bunch.
Oh, yeah? A whole
But
bunch?
I'm like him. Like, I would just write it because it's easier than writing a story. Just, 6 words in this line and move on and just leave it. People can fill in the details themselves. Like a good songwriter, you're not taking them to exactly the place in your brain. You're taking them to the place in their brain, sort of. You give them the details, and then that's what makes it a special song to them.
Mm-hmm. One thing I love about songwriting is that it sort of forces you into the old school poetry paradigms of meter and rhyme, which can be really constrictive or whatever if you're just writing poetry, but in songs it makes you do it to a certain extent. You want those rhymes to land on. And I've spent so much time rhyming things that I'm just completely blown away by the mystical power of rhyming. Like I was talking to somebody who's been like sending me their songs and wants me to critique them and stuff like that. And this idea came out to me the other day. Like he said he was writing the song and he started out rhyming, but then he abandoned the rhyme because he wanted to be more honest. And I was like, and I realized that maybe is a mistake a lot of people make, is that they think that people are forcing the rhymes, so they're saying things they didn't mean to say just because they're going for the rhyme. And I was like, but really, like the magic happens where you decide what you want to say and then make that rhyme.
Right.
Don't just say something you didn't mean because it rhymes. Never do that. I'm not saying I never do that. I'm sure I do that all the time. But still, the real goal is to know what you're trying to say and make that rhyme. It's maybe sounds subtle, but it's sort of a huge difference. Yeah. But I just can't even believe. I remember like being completely blown away that I would be reading poems that I knew originally were written in a different language, but they're rhyming.
Oh, yeah. I don't understand that at all.
And it's a great editor, for one, but it's also some truth of the universe, that there's something about that rhyme or whatever that you can say the same thing and still rhyme it in multiple languages.
When I read that, I'm thinking they're just writing whatever they want. It's like, how do you read, how do you make warning and mourning in a foreign language be this, they didn't rhyme at
The
all.
editor's got to be taking huge liberties, right? I've had that feeling, but I do think there's maybe something going on there too.
Now that we're on air, and I can't think of it, even though I sing this song all the time. There's a Billie Eilish song now, where she's going. It's like the same thing, blah 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 in the morning, blah 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 in the warning, but the first line, the last word is like it just won't fit in there. Like if she would say it, it would throw everything off. So she sings like the second to the last line, and this other voice real quietly says, like sort of quicker than she could possibly say it herself. Like while she's saying the second to last word, they get that word in there, so it rhymes with the next line. And I'm always like, God, she knew that she couldn't sing it to make it sound right, so she just has this other voice like poking in there real fast at the end.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I'm so used to just writing in rhyme and stuff that you just, and also the more you do it, the more you learn more words and how words fit and all that stuff. And it does, but it's not it does become, well, not easier, but it does become, your brain starts thinking that way, sort of, And when I write prose, man, like you said, I could be. Even when I read it, I'm go, man, what was I even talking about? I'm just like off somewhere, like, help! I'm falling down a well. Where did I start from? Down here. Somebody throw me a rope.
It is so fascinating how, for writers, how it starts. Whether it's your blurb for the Jabber John shows, or your poem, or one of my songs. Right. I feel like all of us would probably agree that we're a little surprised how it starts.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I know. You just I pick up my guitar, I start strumming, I start singing, and it starts. And I'm just like, okay, I'm at your service. Whatever that little like, how does it start for you when you sit down? I mean, how does it happen?
It's funny today. There was a wreck on 81, and the sign said all lanes closed. So I was like, crap, now what am I going to do? So I got off on whatever that other road is that comes down, and it was just bumper to bumper traffic. And then I get this other thing that says stay to the right. So I stay to the right, and that's taking people to the state fair. So I pull into the damn state fair. I'm like, God, I'm never gonna get home. So I got to and it's just like one lane with cones, so you go to the state fair. So I have to drive like half a mile into the state fair, or some kind of fair out in Harrisonburg. So I finally whip a U-turn, and I get home. And I got home, I was like, I'm not gonna have time to write anything. And I was upstairs taking a dump, sitting on the toilet, and something about, this is like, I really have to write this quick. And the whole thing about like no safety nets or no strings attached, that just came into my mind, and I just started writing. It just, like that one thought just made it all, because I was like, this is the only chance I have. I got to go pick you up. It's like, and then that was the same sort of thing. Like I just ran out of space. I'm like, share your popcorn. I didn't run out of space. Ran out of. I had to pull up my pants and get going. No, I hate when I'm laying in bed, and I don't know. Like sometimes I'll just be driving in the car, laying in bed, and just something comes to you, and I'm like, I know I'm not going to remember this. Do you have those where then the next day you're like, man, I knew I had something, but I can't remember it.
All the time.
That haunts me sometimes.
It's so bad, because even just last night I had an example of this. This wasn't writing, but with the tricks that Percy can do on our Discord server, the data stuff or whatever, I had this idea when I was doing timestamps last night for something Percy could do, and I was like, oh man, I should tell Andy that right now. But then I looked at the clock, it was like 3:30 in the morning. I was afraid of dinging him and waking him up. And I was like, I'll just tell him tomorrow. But the thing that is universal was that my thought was like, this is such a good idea, there's no way I'll forget it.
Right.
How many times have you said that to yourself? like, oh, I should write this down. It's such a good idea.
Right.
No, it's such a good idea. There's
won't
no
go
way
into
you're
it.
going to forget it.
I
I'm not-
never say that anymore.
You've grown past that.
I have learned that that's not true.
It's just not true.
No, I have the opposite. I have lots of things that pop into my head that I can't get to the journal quick enough to write it down. And I'll get the journal out and I'll look down and then I'll see a commercial and I'll watch the commercial and then I'll go back and it's gone. It's just gone.
Right. It's just gone.
Completely
Right.
gone. And here's something I want you to know, that a lot of times that in my life, I've often said, well, if it's that important, I'll remember it later.
Right.
That's not true.
Right.
That's just not true. Some things just go away and never come back again.
So it wasn't that important.
Yeah.
It might have been important.
It might have been real. That's my point. It doesn't matter. If it goes, it goes.
Right.
It doesn't say I'll come back later because I'm very important. It just if you go, it just goes.
Now we have a guy in here, Scott, that and I have never done this. He says his poetry comes all at once, but sometimes just one line comes to him and I'll return to it later after I flesh out the idea. Do you ever do that? Do you ever just have a line and come back to it later?
Oh
They-
yeah.
You do?
Well, yeah, you'll hear a way something goes, sounds that you like, that it's new, it's unique, you haven't felt that way before. And then you try to fit it into some way.
Now, do you write
like
that
that.
down so you don't forget it? Or
I would try to. I would like to, yeah. And that's what a lot of my journal is, just thoughts that pop up that later on I can go back and embellish or erase or whatever.
and he says he doesn't care if it rhymes, as long as it says what he wants it to say.
You know, it's one thing to say it, but to say it in a way that other people want to read it. I'm trying to write so that someone's reading it, and that's how they feel like they would have said it themselves. So I'm writing for, that's what I look at when I read Wordsworth and those people. They were writing for each other up in New England, and they were all very literate, Yale and Harvard graduates. They all had huge vocabularies, and they were trying to impress each other.
Right.
They weren't writing for some guy that's in the bar somewhere reading a book.
It's very true.
But remember, like I told you, when I listened to Orson Welles reading, what was that thing about the bird?
The birds.
The ship with the bird that follows it around.
Albatross?
Oh, remember I told you I was trying to read it, and you and me were like, nobody likes that. And then when I heard Orson Welles read it, it was like,
Oh, Ulysses?
Crap. It made perfect sense.
Oh,
when
the Maritime Mariner?
What was that?
Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Yeah. And I was trying to read it. It was just like you said. This guy's just writing crap so he can take it to the bar and show his friends and they'll buy him a drink or something. They don't know what it even means. But then when Orson Welles read it, I was like, man, this is like a story. I'm sitting there listening to it. And just the way he was reading it just made it, fleshed it out so much.
Right.
It's so, Shakespeare's like that.
Oh, yeah.
You're just like,
Oh, yeah.
one version of it, you're just like, oh my God. But then somebody else reads it in such a way that you're like, oh, this is like down in the dirt stuff. This isn't like hoity-toity. This is in their parlance, this is down and dirty.
A friend of mine was trying to get me into Shakespeare when I lived in New Jersey, and the library that near us was just like a wonderful library. They'd have jazz music and Shakespeare performances and stuff, all for free. Just go sit there. So we went and saw this one story. It looked like about an hour play or whatever, and it just it was like, it was still hard for me to understand, but it was just so. It just made a lot more sense. So at the end of it, I said, man, I sort of understand it now. I just don't understand why he was dating his sister. She's like, why do you think he's dating his sister? And I was like, well, because of this. She's like, you still don't understand what they're doing. They're nowhere did it say he was dating his sister. I was like, I was watching this whole thing thinking it was his sister. She's like, we got a lot of work to do to get you to understand Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's the way I am with Shakespeare. I'd have to have a lot of work done before I could really understand because I don't know the vocabulary.
Right.
They talk differently than I do.
Well, one of the thing I love about Shakespeare is even though I'll probably never sit down and read one of his full things, just reading about him is so fascinating. Like he was just so, I mean, just so smart and just, his times he lived in and stuff. I've read more biographies and all the controversy that he didn't write all that. It was different people writing it and stuff. I find all that stuff fascinating. Then I get all fired up. I'm going to read some Shakespeare now, like, woo, throw it to the side.
Do you think he wrote all that stuff?
Just a lot of the proof sort of says he did, but I like to have the image that he did. That's like if somebody said, well, Bob Dylan didn't write all those songs. He couldn't have written all that. And you'd be like, yeah, he could. But just, the time that he must have put into it and the thought and stuff, how that stuff still speaks to people, what, 600, what was it, the 1400s or something? What was Shakespeare?
Good question.
That could have been 1400.
Hey, Siri. When was Shakespeare?
William Shakespeare, baptized April 26, 1564.
1564.
So 500 years ago. And people still, man. But then I also don't like when you see these movies, they make them, with the cool kids in it. They make the language all. I'm like, nah, don't do that to the poor guy.
Making it hip for the kids. That Shakespeare in Love or something I remember thinking that was pretty good. I can't remember what it was. That maybe wasn't actually Shakespeare.
What was the...
I actually just to contradict that, there's this show on Netflix called All American. You ever watch that? It's sort of cheesy, young soap opera stuff, but around like a high school football team. But the main guy, the main star of the show, did Shakespeare in the last episode I watched, and I was just like, it was one of those moments where I was flashing on when I said, then you hear someone else do it, and you're like, oh my God, it's so, so it's actually awesome.
It's almost like when I'm reading it, I'm also trying to figure it out. It's easier if somebody who's already figured it out reads it in a voice sort of leading you where it's supposed to go instead of like not knowing where to stop and where to, emphasize anything. It just becomes like, somebody just spraying you with something instead of like giving you, oh, taste this and this and this.
Right. Little spoonfuls instead of buckets over top of your head. I went down an interesting rabbit hole. I am doing 5 nights a week now, and then our weekly show at Jawn. It's like the arriving song and the leaving song. I can't remember like what songs I did recently. I'm like, did I just do this one last week? I can't remember stuff we've talked about. Was that us talking about that, or was that Catherine and I in the kitchen, or what?
Right.
But the point where Dylan got awarded the Nobel. Well, no, it wasn't. It was the Tom Paine Award. This was back in the day, and he, in his acceptance speech for the Thomas Paine Award, this is back, when he was the voice of a generation. He was writing these protest songs, and everybody considered him the voice of it. He was like the voice of like the progressive social justice movements, civil rights movements, and all this stuff. And so he was awarded the Thomas Paine Award. But before he got awarded that, you could tell he was already doubting this role in the world of being this voice of justice, this voice of righteousness. And like, so he gives this like super cryptic, somewhat disturbing acceptance speech for this award at the Thomas Paine thing. And it basically says all these upset, it's worth reading, but like he even like the assassination of Kennedy wasn't, it was like months before this. Like it had just happened, was fresh. And he's like, you know, and I see Lee Harvey Oswald, I see myself in this guy or whatever. And it's just saying all these things that are just, that the people are just like, what is this guy talking about? And then on his next record, he has this song called My Back Pages. Do you remember that song? Oh, I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. And if you really listen to those words, it's sort of like his letter to like the world of being like, I'm not going to be this person for you anymore. And you read some, I went down the whole rabbit hole of this whole little moment in Dylan's life because it's so fascinating to me. The next year, he goes to the Newport Folk Convention where he'd been a hero with his Hammer of Justice songs, whatever, and that's when he famously debuts his electric band. And Pete Seeger runs and gets an axe to try to chop the electric cables to the stage to stop this blasphemy that was occurring. And it's just such a fascinating pivot that he does right there. And it's, I think it was very much a part of his character and integrity for him to turn his back on that whole idea so radically and refuse to be that for people anymore. You don't have any?
I've thought about that a lot. I just thought with his talent, I think it was too constraining to be held. Like they loved him, but they wanted him to be what he was. And I think just his brain was just like, there's, you know, we're doing this. There's all this out here too. I can't. I mean, he probably could have made a whole brilliant career just doing that type of music, but you know, sometimes you just reach a point, you know, like, oh, you can't really. Like the Beatles could have done their first 2 albums and probably just, you know, that type of music forever, but you just want to expand. But he was just held, that little community he was in was so much more, like you said, like Seeger was like, you know, what have you done? Like it wasn't like, oh, this is a new take on it. Seeger saw it as like as a physical attack on himself.
So many people were so horrified that Dylan was betraying them in so many ways. And one of the ways Dylan put it was, I'm not going to write those finger-pointing songs anymore. Like he was their weapon against what they considered to be the evils of the world or whatever. But I feel like he saw a potential of that expectation and trying to meet it and trying to be that was super dangerous to him. Like it really freaked him out. Like I can't be this person.
Yeah, I don't think he ever wanted to be that person. He never asked for that role.
But that is what he was for those first few records. And when he came, I mean, Blowing in the Wind put him on the map, and then you had just song after song that was bells of freedom and great civil rights anthems and Hard Rain's Gonna Fall and Times They Are A-Changing. He was amazing at that.
Oh yeah, but he was also amazing at writing just love songs and other statement songs too. And I don't think he wanted to be stereotyped as that guy, which makes sense to me. That he rebelled. What's really remarkable is that he had the talent to reject that persona and still succeed in the world and in show business with other persona. And he did that more than once.
He did that more than once.
And every time.
As soon as we got used to that, Bob, he was like, all right, time for a change. I'm going to be a born-again Christian now and proselytize from stage and sing about you got to serve somebody.
You got to serve somebody, so here you go. Try this on.
Yeah.
But that makes him that much more remarkable. But yeah, it's something that he was able to do because he didn't want to be boxed in. He didn't want to be put on a shelf. And they know what category he is, so I think he's always done that.
I think there was also like beyond just not wanting to be confined or boxed in as an artist. I feel like he saw like a real danger to thinking you're so right about things. Like the reason he saw himself in Lee Harvey Oswald months like after that happened was a little bit different energy than just like there's something about this righteousness that has a dark side
Right.
that he didn't want to contribute to, that he was
That's right.
fueling hate in some ways,
Yeah.
that there was just it was a perilous, there's something about his integrity that refused to do it, that wasn't just being boxed in as an artist, but seeing a dark side to the whole thing. That Thomas Paine speech is a very interesting read. I'll send you guys a link after the show.
Now this is all. I mean, I don't know the whole story with this, but this is making me think of the Australian break dancer, who basically came out. And did
Oh, it
something-
is. Everything reminds you of that.
Well, no, she did something entirely different, and now they just say people are coming after her, like the hate mail, and like, I don't think she was doing it to be. I mean, I can see how people would say this was disrespectful. You didn't appreciate the art of what we do or anything, but I took it as, well, I didn't even really think about it until I started reading it. She was out there. I mean, she did look sort of goofy and stuff, but she was just
You know
saying.
what we're talking about?
No.
Breakdancing was part of the Olympics this year.
Right, I know that.
And there was this like 30-some-year-old music teacher from Australia,
Raygun.
that competed for the Australian team. And I think she like teaches about hip hop and stuff in college or something.
Yeah, I don't even know what she does.
But her breakdancing was really, really funny.
It was like rudimentary, but she had a plan what she was going to do. She didn't just get up there and just start invent something. She knew what she was going to do. But people,
But she didn't even seem like an athlete necessarily.
Yeah.
Like,
the people the people are just attacked her, like you disrespected hip hop and breakdancing and the history. It's like sort of like Pete Seeger, it was like, this is what it is, this is what it needs to stay, and this is, and it was everybody else that was in it was, I mean, if you watch them, it's just the body movement and the way they can do stuff is beautiful. And she was out there like that thing she's doing was what's every meme now. She's doing that thing. It was it was funny looking. But I mean, why? Who says that's not breakdancing?
Right.
I'll probably start getting hate mail now. But, but anytime you break from what everybody expects, it does cause a lot of people to, raise their shackles and get all mad at you.
the purists.
Not that she's anywhere near compared to Bob Dylan, but just sort of made me think about that.
It's such an interesting energy. I remember like when the Amusement played the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and we had a drummer, and you don't have drums in bluegrass, and you'd meet people that were just completely offended that we were even there. Like, there's no drums in bluegrass, and that energy between a purist, because I feel like, the purist, you have the purist and then you have the innovator. And the purist is such an important person, and the innovator is such an important person, and you can't really necessarily. It's just so interesting to me how you need different kinds of people,
Right.
and you can argue like the innovator and the purist disagree, but they're symbiotic at the same time, because the innovator without the purist has nothing really to innovate. It's not that interesting. You're not taking the purist vision somewhere new.
Right.
You're just blasphemous
Right.
or whatever. But the purist has to sort of stick to their guns, because they're the preservative of that craft in a pure form.
Right.
And so without any purists, people would just forget how anything was ever done, what the pure essence of anything ever was.
And that goes back to Pete Seeger was a purist.
He is a purist. Yeah.
And Bob Dylan was an innovator.
100%.
And that was exactly what was going on with that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny, like, those people are having a fit about you having a drummer. I mean, did they enjoy the music? Or, I mean, we really liked you.
Oh, hell
You shouldn't
no.
have been there.
They wouldn't give themselves a chance.
God.
You don't want to slip
Right.
in your
Well,
task.
it was funny. The show I went to last night, I went with the work group, and it was like a lady that nobody had ever heard of, and I guess people were grumbling they didn't want to go or something. So my boss just like wrote this, probably nobody else even knows that she said this, but she said, you don't always go to see things you like. These things are free shows for a chance to open your mind and learn something new. I said, that's exactly what this is. Just whether you're going to like the lady or not, you can say, well, I saw somebody do this type of music, you know. If you don't like it, get up and leave after 10 minutes or something. But I think a lot of people do get like that. They just, this is what I like, and nothing else.
They're not expanding their horizons.
Yeah.
Right.
So these bluegrass people, they're like probably driving home from the festival. That damn drum, like tapping out one of the songs y'all did. I can't believe they had a drum on there. What is the song that's in my head? Oh God, no! No, I'm not a purist anymore.
I do think that there, you know, there's such an important role that I feel like that just in curmudgeons of like as we get older and we're like, oh well, you know, they're not doing it right or whatever, that there's some kind of, oh, the music these days is terrible or whatever it is, right. that we there's something about the way something used to be done that we're like holding on to. But then I feel like a lot of times we're too hard on ourselves and don't allow us to be the curmudgeonly purist that maybe the world needs us to be, because we have such we appreciate innovation. We just assume we don't understand it, so and we don't want to sound like an old man saying get off my lawn, so we just don't stick to our guns like that and insist that there's a right way of doing things and a wrong way of doing things. That purist energy can be such a healthy, powerful thing in the world. And you know, still to this day in the music world, like Clifftop just happened, these old time festivals, and that's, you go to an old time festival, you're going to be hanging out with purists.
All right.
And it's a beautiful thing. And if you try to bring your drums to the circle over there, it's not, they should Pete Seeger your ass out of that little, you know, like
we got a 4-piece horn section with us. You're gonna love it.
It'd be like taking somebody to a bluegrass festival that could sing.
Oh man, the lines have lit up now.
Oh no.
No, let me see if I can find this. What did this person say? Oh, now I can't find it. Somebody said something that's disappearing. Somebody said something, then they start writing. She was writing songs, but then she can't go any further, so they just stay unfinished. Do you have anything like that you just can't wrap it up, so you just put it aside?
Oh, yeah, I do that all the time.
Mm-hmm. False starts.
Now, do you ever go back and try to finish, or that's just done? Once you set it aside, it's done?
I feel like if it dies on the operating table, if you try to go back later, like you're a little bit of a Frankenstein trying to breathe life into a corpse.
Well, that's what she said. She said that's why most of her songs remain unfinished.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, because the original feeling is not really, like you said, it's like a Frankenstein. Like, I know this thing can live, but it's not really what I want it to be. It's got 2 left feet now, you know. It's not, it didn't form naturally. It's like, there's a foot. Well, that's the same as the other foot. But all right, it'll make it work, you know.
Yeah, I'm getting a little neurotic as I get older with that thing we were talking about earlier about, oh, it's good, so there's no way I'll forget it. And I've forgotten so many things that I thought were good over the years that now I'm like a mess. As soon as like a good idea musically starts coming to me, I record it on my phone like immediately, because I have so many times I've been like, I'll come back later and be like, oh wait, how did that go? Right. And now my phone is just full of like a couple hundred beginnings of songs that never went anywhere. But I'm so bad that like the moment I start writing, I'll get the first verse and I'll have to record it immediately, which I think is a bad habit, because I'm not just staying, I'm already afraid of losing it, so I'm recording it on my phone, and now I'm like outside of that creative space of where it was coming to me, and I feel like I'm losing a few patients on the operating table that I don't have to, because I'm just afraid of forgetting it or losing it, and I go right to recording it. It's a little confusing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's hard to give good advice in terms of all that. one thing I'm sort of famous for saying is that my advice to young writers is that they have to be willing. They have to write a lot of bad songs before they write a good song.
Right.
And I've known so many people in my life that would have been very talented songwriters, but they started later in life once their tastes had already fully developed. And they would start writing the song, but it wasn't at a high enough quality for their already evolved standards, so they would abandon it. So they never wrote enough bad. They weren't really willing to write a bad song, so they never they never became the songwriter they could have been. But that's tough advice to process,
Yeah,
or whatever. Because
I was reading somewhere some teacher or some famous author said to be a good writer, you got to write a lot of good bad stuff. Like there's a spark in there, but it's just not up to your, but it's good, but it's just not what you want.
The one reason, because I've said this on my show, and some writers I know have like really been like, okay, they've been inspired by that advice, but then I realized that I'm sort of lying, because I wrote hundreds of bad songs before I wrote a good song, but I never once thought they were bad at the time. Like,
Right.
I thought they were brilliant.
Right.
So there's people out there going, well, this song sucks, but Nathan says I got to finish it.
Right.
Like, no, that's not exactly right, because you can't know it's a bad song.
Right.
You have to think it's good.
Right.
So I don't know what to tell you. Good luck with all that.
If you know it's bad from the start, just stop.
Right.
Now, let's say you pull out a 1998 journal, can you tell like something that you were writing and you just ran out of steam and stopped, or do you say these were all exactly where I wanted them to be, or can you read it and tell the difference?
Oh, I see everything. I see some that should have stopped but didn't,
Sooner.
and they suck. And I see some that had a good thought, and that's all they were, was a good thought.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing what I get. I'm not a published writer. I don't sit down and.
No, that's not true though. You are a published writer.
Well, I
Just
don't.
so you know.
I don't sit down and think about writing every day or anything like that. But so it's kind of when it comes, and I try to bottle it a little bit. But I'm not a conscientious writer like you are, where I go after it.
I don't know if that's true. Is that really true?
Well, I guess we have different goals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to say something I like poetically, but I'm not trying to take it anywhere. You're trying to make a song out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little different, I think. I'm not a performer either. You are.
Right. I've had this interesting phenomenon where I was talking to Cather about this last night, where, because on the daily practice, we're really sort of trying to distill each song down to its pure essence, and where I can just deliver a good, definitive version of the song. And there's probably like 5 or 6 songs in the last few weeks where I've cut the last verse or 2 off of it. Just unnecessary. And I was talking to Cather about that last night, and she was just like, well, what was going on was you were just having so much fun writing that song that even after the song was over, you didn't want to stop writing that song because it was such a fun space. So like even after the song was done, I wasn't ready to stop writing that song because I was in such a happy place that I just kept writing. And I would write like a couple extra verses at the end that were completely superfluous, unnecessary. It was already tight and nice. But there's like 5 or 6 songs that the last verses are gone now. Just like,
Wow, that's fascinating.
but I liked her probably accurate explanation of why that happened.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
No, this guy says he never. If he comes up with a line and doesn't finish it, it means he just wasn't ready, so he saves it. Do you do that?
I'm not very. I'm definitely from that camp of when John Prine was talking about how if he's sitting in a chair at a table and a song starts coming to him, if he gets up and leaves that table,
Right.
he can't expect the song to still be there when
Right.
he gets back. Like it's like catching lightning in a bottle.
Right.
Like you can't just catch the beginning of the lightning and then be like, oh, this is great. I'll come back
Right.
later. Like that's, if you just imagine catching lightning in a bottle, that makes absolutely no
Right.
sense. But I mean, there's a lot of things I'm not good at, and one of them is like, oh, I should write a song about this. Oh, and to me that's like the same idea.
Right.
Like if I have just like a really good line or a verse or whatever, and then leave it, and I'll just shelve that and come back to it later. Now I'm trying to write a song about that line.
Yeah.
Or something, and I'm terrible about that. Like, give me a newspaper story or something, and be like, "Hey, oh, this is," and it drives me crazy because I'd love to be able to do that. I'd love to be able to look at the news and be like, "I'm going to write a song about that. That's a very interesting story. That's a good. I should put that to music." Terrible at that. It's almost like writing prose or the speeches I was
Right.
talking about earlier. Like, it's just not how it happens. It's more of an alchemy or more of a mystical thing than that. It's a stream of consciousness.
Right.
It's about getting my conscious mind out of the way and letting it flow.
Right.
And it's a very mysterious thing. The idea that I can intentionally do anything is not correct.
Right. Now, mentioning John Prine, I saw on TV last night where he was, I mean, I don't know much about him, but Siskel and Ebert, who was the shorter one? Whoever he was.
Siskel.
Siskel went to see a
Am I
movie.
right about that? Which one is which?
I don't know.
Well, the short, pudgy one went to see a movie. It was terrible. So he left the movie and went to this bar or something, and John Prine was playing. So instead of writing the movie review, he wrote a review about John Prine's. But he was a well-known. I mean, he didn't have his TV show and stuff, but he was a well-known voice for movies and entertainment. And he wrote such a good review of John Prine that people started coming in and seeing him more. Then the article got published somewhere else or something, and that supposedly that's how like John Prine got his big start, because one of those guys went and saw a bad movie and left, and just happened to wander into this place.
I never heard that story.
Yeah. So see, one good plug and make you or break you.
Hey, you just never know.
I know.
You just never know.
Now, when you were teaching, did you ever talk about music or recommend a song or a book or anything to anybody, or you didn't feel that was your business?
Well,
Or not just a person, but like the whole class.
we talked about music, and they knew what I liked, and we took, and I listened to what they would tell me they liked, and I would try it out. So, yeah, we talked about music.
You know, something he did that was really profound, I think, was your thought of the day it was on the blackboard every day, right?
Oh yeah.
And so there would be a quote or from something up on his blackboard every day, and a lot of songs, a lot of books, a lot of lines
a lot
from
of
books.
lines from songs, but
There's probably little seeds that were planted from that thoughts for the day that changed people's lives in ways you never would imagine.
the one thing I did do was I had my cassette player and my cassettes that I would make from the radio. You'd listen to 1240 radio, and they'd play a song you liked, and then you'd tape it, and then you'd tape it over and make. So I had all these tapes of songs that I liked, and when I was doing labs in the chemistry classroom, it was set up so that there would be music in the background.
Oh.
I'd have the cassette player playing, and the rule was that we played my songs because I wanted to hear them, and they needed to know the history of the music business. I told them, it's not that I don't like your music, I don't know it, but I want to expose you to mine. And this is my classroom, and I've got to be here all day, and I'm going to play what I want to play.
Right.
So it's purely selfish, but they got, in other words, I had the Beatles and stuff like that, so they got, and they knew it already because their parents played it. So I was playing their parents' music, but there was very strict rules. If you screwed around in the chemistry lab and did something wrong, or were messing around, the music stops, and then I get irritated.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I can't
Oh,
hear.
no.
You know what Mr. Moore pissed off. So.
That silence is the sound of his contempt.
Exactly. Me not getting to hear the Beatles at 10:30 in the morning is very wrong. So, but that was one way we talked about music, because they would listen to it, and they had their favorites. I'd play Dean Martin. They loved some of the old early Dean Martin stuff. I loved it.
Dad used to make a lot of mixtapes.
Oh yeah.
That was a whole thing there for.
The thing about the music is, like, you have so many genres, so you don't want to offend someone and just play their music. But I was pretty good about that, because I loved Motown and rhythm and blues. I even had a jazz. I did a little jazz, So I would mix it up, and they would get a little less music history.
History. We had a lot of good nights where you'd be like, especially with me and Dan and Joe, of, all right, let's make a mixtape tonight. Like, all right, Joe, you're up next. You got to pick it. So we were each pulling from our generation's love of music. I wonder how many of those still exist.
There's basement has boxes of those tapes down there. I don't have an instrument to play them. I need one.
Cassettes.
Every time I put one in, it shreds it, or either breaks the machine or breaks the cassette.
Yeah, that was fun back in the old mix days.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever try to tell did you ever try to, like, not a story, but was it just random songs put on that you liked, or was there some kind of theme rolling through it?
I had definitely had themes at different times, because then I could also use my 45s and play what I wanted to play. So what I would make would be, I'd listen to the popular songs and make a tape, and then I'd take that and add to another tape, and so I'd be remastering another tape, and so I'd be making tapes that definitely had a theme to them.
Yeah,
I'm only an alcoholic that's very alone by the river, contemplating suicide.
No. So I have when I used to make mixtapes and CDs, I had the same thing. Even though I didn't really think of a theme. When I would listen to it later, I would realize there was a theme. And one of my friends who loves music, his CD and his mix things are just good music. But one time I asked him, I said, "Well, what's the theme of this one?" Theme? I don't have any theme for it. It's just songs I like. I was like, I've never even heard of anybody just putting. These are some songs I like. I always would like try to get the pace or the beat or something,
Right.
So take you a plateau.
A theme,
going.
at least.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it could be the fast and then something real slow. And I would listen to him like, man, this dude's having a rough life.
So you could sort of tell by listening that there was no theme here. There's no cohesion.
Yeah, that's why I asked him one time. He was like, looked at me like, a theme? What are you talking about? I was like, you never have like a theme? He's like, no, just 10 songs.
And you're a purist. You're like, you got to have a theme.
I took the axe and I crushed the cassette. Like, I see Lee Harvey Oswald in you.
Well, we're almost there. We did it again, folks.
Perfect.
Any comments we should address before we find a bow to tie on it?
I do want to tell one funny story.
Please.
I don't know if any of you older gentlemen like me have to sleep with a CPAP machine.
What is that?
That thing that you breathe, that helps you breathe. I had to get
What's
one.
that stand for?
I don't know, and obviously I don't know because I was calling it by the wrong thing for the first. I was talking to all the doctors and calling it by the wrong name. And somebody said, I was calling it CPAC, and somebody said, God, stop saying CPAC, it's CPAP. I was like, oh my God, I've been telling everybody that. But anyway, so it's this thing you get, and like it's like when I had to do this study, and now that I talk about it, like so many people have it, but they measure like how many times you stop breathing during the night. And so I was during that, and so
What's that called?
Apnea.
Yeah,
sleep
apnea.
apnea.
Yeah.
Sleep apnea.
So I stopped breathing like 23 times an hour or something, and people are like, "That's it? I stopped breathing 46 times an hour and stuff."
Really?
But it's so your heart's working and all this stuff. Anyway, so the machine is just like a little. It looks like an old clock radio. It's the most simplest thing. It's got an on-off button, and the doctor set it up. All you gotta do is hit the on and off button. It's simple as could be. So I get it home. It's all set up, and I put it on, and it was got like a hose and everything, so it's sort of uncomfortable, but it's not hard. It doesn't really. It's not weird breathing through it. So I wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm just like, oh, I'm tired of this thing. So I go to turn it off. It was the first day I had it, and I couldn't remember how to turn it off. So I just started hitting these other. It's the on and off buttons like that big, and then the rest of it's digital. You touch the screen and it changes. So you can get air pressure from 0 to 10, and 10, is like hurricane winds. So like a moron, I take it off, and then I'm trying to turn it. It didn't turn off. So when I turned it back on, I'd set it to like the highest air pressure, and I put the thing on, and I thought I was drowning in air. It was like, it was like just forcing me. And when I opened my mouth, like air couldn't even come out fast enough. And I was like, and I was like laying in bed, like, man, I have to get used to this thing. I probably lay there for like 5 minutes with the force of air, like somebody just forced it, and I probably just took it off. I was like, oh my God, this thing's gonna kill me. And then I woke up the next morning, I looked, and I was like, man, you moron, instead of turning it off, you were hitting buttons, you turned it up to the fullest. It was more like if I was trying to sleep with my head out the window while going down the interstate. But I mean, I was in a panic, laying there in my own bed, like I thought I was drowning in air. It was coming in so fast, but my brain didn't realize that I had changed anything. I was like, well, the first time I fell asleep with it, so I just kept trying to get used to it. Like my head was actually going into the pillow, like trying to get away from the air.
Wow.
So now I've reminded myself where the big off button that big is, so I don't do that anymore.
Put something over the other buttons so you can't hit them. So
Does it help you to sleep without waking? Can you still measure how many?
Well, the thing, I do toss and turn in my sleep a lot, but with that thing on, it sort of keeps you in one spot because you got to sort of get comfortable where the tube is, so it's not coming off your face and all that stuff. And I've only been wearing it for a couple of days now, but I don't think I'm waking up as much.
Do you?
you've only been doing it a couple of days.
Yeah, I started Sunday night.
So it doesn't just measure; it actually breathes for you too.
Well,
it's not just collecting data. It's.
Well, the first thing I wore to collect the data, and that's when they send it to see if you needed it or not. So this thing, basically, the doctor just set it for the air pressure, and then he said, as you use it, it sort of it's a constant stream of air, but like when you breathe out, it stops the air from coming in. So it sort of measures what you need and adjusts itself. And it's that, man, when you're trying to sleep with your head inside of a hurricane, that was like I'm just laying there in bed. My head was like trying to get away from it, like. How did I fall asleep the first time? Like, you're trying to turn away from it, and the thing's going on. You're like, oh, please stop.
How did you know you needed it?
So hold on. When I went to I had blood work done for the diabetes, and they said my blood was thick or something. And they said people that smoke or people that live like in Colorado or high altitudes have it. And then they said if you have sleep apnea. Supposedly because your blood doesn't really flow. Anybody that knows about this stuff, don't listen because I'm probably telling it all wrong. But like the blood's flow, oxygen is interrupted because you're stopping breathing so often. So your heart will like start pumping to get blood going. So your blood like sort of, I guess, it's like getting thick because it's trying to get the oxygen. So I don't know how long it takes to know if it's working or not, but it's quite a thing going to bed with that, hooking that thing up.
Yeah.
And of course,
So it's like a mask that goes over your mouth?
well, they have those, but mine just fits right over your nose. And it's not that. I guess I'll get used to it, but it's like just like. And of course, I don't have a bed by the light. I just have a bed. I have a light at the, the wall, and I get in bed. So now I've got to get in bed and try to hook this thing around my head. Now I have a flashlight that I just shine up in my own face.
Man.
But they said within like 2 or 3 weeks they should be able to tell if it's working or not. So if anybody out there has a CPAP, let me know any hints. The funny, and of course I'm not creative at all, but the funny thing is when I got it, I was like, I wonder if you could put weed in here so it would just like be blowing pot into my lungs the whole time. I thought that probably wouldn't be too good.
Might need those lyrics. I'm going to set that on your knee there. All right, leaving song time. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. Thank you all for being here.
Did we get to sing along at all on this one?
It's not as much of a sing-along,
Okay.
but feel free.
I'm leaving now then.
You don't need me for this?
You ready to go? He can do this by himself.
Now, I'm sure I've done this song before, but this is one of those ones from the Sum of Your Sons.
All right. My 3 sons. You mean to hold this or you can read
I'm
it?
good. Sitting in the shades of green, chickadee trills and the air is wet. I pet my dog and he knows what I mean. This is as good as I get. The radio announces explosions one by one. The bees are buzzing in their hive. Dad is laughing up in his room. I'm alive. I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built its clever nest upon my porch. A peaceful rain drops, and it's hard to believe in war. Joe is calling up his girlfriend. Nana's baking a pie. I've been reading Thoreau, living up in a tree, not really wondering why. Oh, the sweet beauty of a flower's poverty, the magic starry nights. I named the gray squirrel Pedro, just been letting the bedbugs bite. I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built this clever nest upon my porch. A peaceful rain drops, and it's hard to believe in war. There's this one time we were sitting on the back porch out there. I think you were smoking a turkey. And me, you, and Daniel were sitting at the table. And I was, all of a sudden I was like, I just felt a raindrop. Anybody else feel that raindrop? And Daniel says, I did. And you were like, there ain't no way the two of y'all felt the same raindrop. Well, I've been throwing logs onto the fire, been preaching to the cricket choir, smoking an old corncob pipe, and soon these apples will be ripe. We'll be picking apples, mandolins, picking our noses, picking our friends, picking ticks off the dogs now and again. Yeah, picking and a grinning. And I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built this clever nest up on my porch, a peaceful raindrops. And it's hard to believe in war. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.
One more time, just so we can all sing. It's hard to believe in war.
And it's hard to believe in war.
There you go.
There you go.
Put some damn drums with that. We got a band.
Not a bluegrass band, though. Miss you, Lex. How does this work again? There it is.
Yeah, an hour ago I had Phoebe Joe in my lap.
Oh, wow. How's she doing?
She was just happy as a bird.
Oh, that's sweet.
Greatest smile. She's walking. Except when she's in a hurry, she can still crawl faster. But
You say she's walking?
yeah,
Just full on?
well, pretty much. She can walk now.
Wow.
But if she's in a hurry, she just runs, scoots across there. Yeah, Elliot doing good too. He's a math whiz.
He really is a math whiz.